Oklahoma and Bama get some clutch wins. Louisville dominates Notre Dame. Grab a drink and join us on this week's Tailgate. Hey y'all, I'm Luke, and as always, I'm joined here with Dennis and Michael.
Hello, hello. And Dennis doesn't want to talk.
No.
Well, hopefully he gets a little more vocal as we go on. But yeah, thanks for joining us on this week's Tailgate. Why don't we cut to Michael, and he's going to tell us about our sponsor here.
Yep. So our sponsor this week is, like every week, is Explore Tours. If you are in the Middle Tennessee area and are looking for an adventure tour or just a walking tour just to get to know the history of Nashville and want to know the story of Nashville, then check it out at exploretours.com. So we had some really good games this past weekend. Not a lot of good like
Not like the past 2 weeks.
No,
but
no,
we've
no.
had some good games.
Still a good week of football, man.
Yeah.
I still couldn't complain about
And
it.
we also had some pretty bad games.
We had some bad games. Yeah, we did. And but I mean, I think the biggest one for the weekend that was defining for the AP Top 25, but was also like just probably the closest in talent that we saw all weekend was
The Pirate game.
Yeah, the Red River Shootout.
The Red River rivalry, the R game.
Man, I don't think I could say that, man. I was just listening. I'm like, no, I definitely can't say that.
Well, you don't like
I'm
Pirates?
struggling. No, the Red River
rivalry.
Like, man.
Just call it the Pirate game. RRR. R. It's the Pirates' favorite game. Yeah, no, it was so much fun. That game was crazy. I mean,
It was so
everybody was
good.
like, Texas starts off and has two turnovers. They were interceptions in their first two possessions. One is at the opposite end of the field in their red zone, and the other is at the other end of the field. I mean, it's like just crazy how many points
You got to
Oklahoma.
complete the entire size, man. Like,
Yes, yeah, you got to bookend it,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
But Oklahoma.
What was the fumble loss? Was it midfield? Like,
it was it was midfield, but that was like right at the beginning of the second.
Yeah.
So I got to say, Ewers, you disappointed me this week, man. So you didn't play your best game.
Yeah.
But I mean, give Texas some credit. They come back. Those first two interceptions could have been horribly bad.
Oh yeah.
But it ended up they were only down 7, by 7, I think. They kept it close all game, back and forth. Texas goes up, 30-27 with like a field goal with like a minute 22. And then Oklahoma goes on this like amazing Ohio State like game winning drive. No, just kidding.
Every single game winning drive is going to be Ohio State.
every
Especially when it comes to the last second, man.
Last second, yeah. I mean, I guess this wasn't. There were 15 to go when they got the touchdown, but just beautiful drive. I mean, you got to give their quarterback so much credit. He just was cool.
He played an amazing game.
Yeah.
Man. Like,
Yeah.
You can play a much better game than that.
Well, and like Dennis, you were asking before we started the program, it's just like, will we classify what happened this weekend with Oklahoma and Texas an upset? And it's like, not really, because again, they're two teams that, one, it's an incredibly old rivalry, but then two, like they're both going to bring their best game for that, and they showed that this weekend. They both, even though there were lots of flubs on Texas's side, they still played at a very high level.
Even with those flubs, they still came back, and they still, the defense kept them in the game. And what was crazy and what I didn't really realize was last year's 49-0 victory by Texas. Gabriel's wasn't even in.
No, he had a concussion.
He had a concussion and was out. So like, you go back to that game and go, man, how much different could last year have been? Had he not had the concussion. So it was just a great game. And then the one thing that I was really disappointed in Texas is they were kind of driving. I think they gained like 30 yards before Ewers threw that Hail Mary into the end zone. And I watched that, and I felt like none of the Texas players actually made any effort to go after that ball. Like, it's in the end zone. It's you got a chance, and it just seemed like there were like 4 Oklahoma guys jumping up there, swatting at the ball, and the Texas guys just watched them. So I don't know,
I
again,
think the closest Texas player it seemed like was like 10, 15 yards away still. I was like,
it might have not been that, but I mean, it was far enough away. They're not doing anything. Yeah.
I remember we texted. We were like, in the group chat, we were like, "Yo, was anybody there? Like, anybody awake still?"
Yep. So, and I mean, I know it has to be hard when you're, losing, and you have to kind of hopefully get this game when this.
I mean, yeah, I think about it too. The last minute, it was kind of really emotional. At a minute 17, they hit a field goal. They're like, "Hey, we got this big celebration," and then literally a minute later, guess what? Oklahoma scored.
Right.
Now you got 15 seconds to score. It's like, well, man, I feel like just emotions, man. I was exhausted.
Oh yeah, yeah, a lot of adrenaline, highs and lows. But I expected a little bit more from him on that play. But overall, I mean, in my opinion, again, one of the best games, like start to finish, of the weekend.
Yeah, and arguably it's kind of up there with me for like the Notre Dame like Ohio State game in the sense of just like how defining it is for a year. Yeah. Like that was one of the first games this year that felt like a lot was on the line. It felt like two teams that were not necessarily equally matched, but at least in that setting they felt very even.
Yes.
The competition felt very even. The talent felt very even. And this is like the second game this year that's felt like that. But speaking of other teams that have dealt, speaking of,
Notre Dame
losing.
Oh yes, Notre Dame losing.
Dennis, you got this one because this is your game last week.
No, yeah, I mean, you even called the upset. So,
I did.
We agreed on something for once.
Yeah.
The black horse.
Yes.
Definitely.
The black horse. Yeah.
It was just, I'm excited for Louisville just kind of pulling that win. Brown ball, you can't go wrong with it. The head coach, offensive coordinator, they just played all the way. And I feel like the first 3 quarters, solid game. You couldn't go wrong. Unless you're Hartman, you're gonna throw 2 picks and you just
went really wrong.
Not 2 picks, 3 picks,
Three
and then
picks
just kind of make
fumbles.
it, 2 fumbles, 5. Just a 5 sounds a nice, round number. You can just kind of pick it out. Apparently, no interceptions thrown before that, but hey, if you're gonna choke, I guess you're just gonna choke.
Go big or go home, man.
Well, and you made a mention too, like last time when he was at Wake Forest.
Yes,
like they played against Louisville, he choked again.
They were the same ranking. They were ranked number 10 at that time too.
That's crazy.
So he just can't play versus Louisville, man.
He just especially if he was in the top 10. He's
well,
jokes.
maybe hopefully they were. I wish they were probably still 11 like they were the week before last.
Yeah.
Then they might not have lost because
maybe.
that number 10.
Knows?
That number 10 spot.
Maybe.
I still believe in Louis, man. They're my team in the ACC.
What this also told me, and just going back and watching the highlights of the game itself, it just goes to show like if you've got a really solid offense that's versatile, Notre Dame can't stop you. And I that's the thing is I feel like if you put the Notre Dame OSU game at the end of the season where Ohio State's actually figured themselves out, because they were still figuring themselves out for the Notre Dame game, where they've kind of settled into their own, I feel like that game would end very differently than how it ended a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think having a new quarterback who's only played 2 games, definitely was what kept Ohio State back. But I mean, you never know. That's the fun thing, and the fun thing to me is, we've talked all year about Hartman and just how pressure him.
Yep, and they did a good job.
I felt like this was one of the first games from Louisville that I felt like their defense was playing faster than their offense at times.
Fair, yeah.
Like
I would
their
agree with
defense
that,
was playing super, super fast and was just flying everywhere. And Hartman, he didn't know what was going on.
No, and I kind of love it too, because as you're saying, basically the defense and stuff like that. The last time they kind of have to go through that kind of, I guess, turmoil, just I guess kind of be more underdog, was actually their first game versus Georgia Tech. Like they were actually down, I believe, like the week 1, almost 2-3 TDs, and they came back and win it. So you could tell when they need to play, they will step up and play. They had no problem just matching up to any kind of talent and taking the game there. Because the fourth quarter, it was theirs. Notre Dame did not show up. That last touchdown at the end for them, that was a pity touchdown, man. Like, hey, fine, we'll let you score. Here you go.
When you give us 5 turnovers, we'll let you have.
We'll
this
throw you
one.
a bone.
Yeah, there you go.
But I mean the other game that we had for this thing, that just as our recap, that we had picked for game of the week, or I picked for game of the week. I'd also picked the upset for it, but we'll talk about that later. Was Bama and Texas A&M, and that game had a lot going for it to be a really well performed game on both sides of the ball for both teams. But if there was ever a game where Milroe actually finally settled into his own and kind of felt comfortable, that was the game that Texas A&M didn't want. They didn't want it to be their game. They wanted it to be after them.
Yeah, this was the first game that Milroe looked like an
Alabama quarterback.
An Alabama top 10. Like, he looked like the type of quarterback Alabama is supposed to have.
I haven't really heard any woes now for like, hey, well, does Bama have a quarterback? Nope. After him playing now the past few weeks, he's like, no, they found it. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, well, and he this was the first game he didn't look crazy shaky. Now he still made some interesting calls, but the thing is, in the midst of all that, like, and Texas A&M still lost this game in the midst of like tons of discipline issues on Bama's side. I mean, Bama had tons and tons of penalties. I want to say last I checked, it was eight false starts. Like, that's 8 times you're behind the ball. Like, how? Like,
you can't do that.
You can't do that to your team. And then there was the there would have been the point spread would have been even bigger on this game if one of their guys hadn't blindsided blocked somebody when they was running. The guy was 15 yards away from the guy carrying the ball, and he runs in and smacks him. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like, just dumb bonehead mistakes.
Dumb bonehead mistakes. And so it was just one of those things. Like, there were lots of things that were going Texas A&M's way, and I think the fact that Connor Wegman was out didn't help them. I think that hurt them at the end of the day. But again, that's the life of the sport. You can't sit there and go, oh well, our starting QB was out, so we actually would have won that game. It's like, well, unfortunately, sometimes you can't. You're not going to have your starters.
Yeah. Football is one of those games that you play the cards that you're dealt. And there's going to be times when I go back to again Ohio State, but Ohio State Georgia game last year when Marvin Harrison Jr. gets knocked out. Like, oh yeah, well we could easily be like, well we would have won that if Marvin Harrison Jr. had been there. Maybe. But guess what? That's what happened. This is a physical game. He got knocked out. We move on.
I mean, another thing to add even to that, though, like, it's crazy that basically almost every single position you can actually choose, the second string usually gets some play time. But in quarterback, you are literally always coming in cold. You never know where you're actually coming in. So it's one of those things like, hey, you got to be ready for it because you genuinely don't know if or when you're going to play because it could be literally one play to the next in this kind of scenario.
Well, and their backup quarterback had played all game the previous game, so there was really no excuse for him.
He knew. Like, that was the biggest difference with that.
Yeah, he just isn't as mobile as Wegman is, and he's not as accurate. So it's just there were a lot of miscues on his part. And again, I get it. He's the backup. There's only so much you can lay on his shoulders. There was some bad play calling on their part too. Their defense still looked good. I mean, their defense still maintained the same kind of pressure they've put on QBs all year. I mean, they're averaging 4.5 sacks per game.
Oh wow!
Which is number 1 in FBS.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't know that.
Tennessee is at 4.4 sacks per game. So right behind them.
Well, and then you have what was it? Who's number 2 for Alabama? The receiver McClellan.
Yep.
Is that their receiver? So I don't know your catch of the week this week, but that he had a pretty good one on that like 3rd and 7. That it was a short throw. He kind of had to bend over, bobble the ball a little bit.
Yeah.
Caden control, and then he stands up and runs for like 10, 15 more yards. That was, again, don't know what you got. We'll wait to hear from it, but that I think should be up there in like,
Nah, I think I got something a little better, man.
You might have. Okay, well, it's up
you
there.
You stick to your segment.
Okay, my bad. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just saying it's up there.
It souned like
it's one of the top 5.
So what would you say is your catch of the week this week then?
I mean, it kind of goes with one of your very, very, very wrong upsets calls. But it kind of lines up with that. And, I mean, there was no need to do such an amazing catch, especially in the end zone. But I would think I have it here where it's a rah-rah,
Rah-rah Thomas.
Rah-rah Thomas. Like, literally.
Is Ha-Ha Clinton Dix his brother? That'd be a fun combo. Ha-Ha and rah-rah.
Dennis is giving me death there. Anyways,
no, I'm just playing you. No, it's just like probably, man. Like I don't know. I don't know the family tree or anything like that. No, but no, he made it just kind of amazing catch. Literally, is like 1 foot in the corner of the end zone, right in front of the end zone, actually, right there next to the pylon, and then the other foot just I would believe like inches, and I feel like that's giving it a little bit generous. just inches away from him, just his foot touching outside right there on the white line.
Yeah.
That was definitely a very like Marvin Harrison Jr. like catch.
You mean Marvin Harrison Jr. Williams?
Oh yeah, the adoption papers. Adoption papers are just need to be signed. Marvin.
I mean, here's the thing, and this is not. I agree. I said to you, Luke, and you guys, like, and Dennis, I was just like, that was easily one of the best catches this weekend. But I'm gonna go off the fact that I think it was less of a Marvin Harrison Jr. catch and more of he just got freaking lucky because his foot just happened to come down.
Yeah.
I personally don't think he actually had that much control. Like maybe again, this might just be my opinion. Yeah. I just feel like his rotation was such that he's just like, I think my foot's gonna hit first, because it just the way that it hit, it didn't look as intentional. It just looked more like body rotation.
No,
for sure. I mean,
I understand what you're saying, but sometimes better to be lucky than good, man.
Oh no, I agree. I'm not taking away from the fact that it was a phenomenal catch because it was still a very tough catch, and the fact that he maintained possession, he maintained control in the midst of such an odd angle.
Yeah, I pointed the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything was great.
And what made it just even better is the fact that his foot, whether it was intentional or not, his foot just properly graced right inside the touchdown.
You only need one foot in, man. That's all you need.
Right. Yeah. No, and I mean I get what you're saying, and it's kind of that 6 and 1, half dozen the other. His foot doesn't hit, and then I'm right, and he's calling that Alabama catch the best catch of the week.
Nah, I probably purposely would have looked for something else now.
No, but no, I hear what you're saying, and I mean that's sometimes, like you said, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and he was lucky and good, and
a combination of both, man.
Combination of all
for sure. But that when we talk about receiving and stuff like that, some people like to receive hits.
Yeah, and hopefully some people have some years of eligibility left.
Well, yeah, right? I mean, for real, especially after that hit.
I would have to go with that one. The hit, he might have a couple years of eligibility. I'm not sure. But, shoot, man, like, there's no way to better say it. I really hope he has a couple years of eligibility because that was one hell of a hit. The ref that did it right there in the Boston college game and the Army game
just took him out.
Yep.
He's just like, man, I didn't know NCAA already had hit stick going on. Like he just like, it's like, hey man, let me throw in a little shoulder. I'm surprised he didn't call for targeting, man. He literally aimed the shoulder right to him.
Yeah.
Like,
and he didn't budge.
No. He was a brick wall, just like, it's like, oh, my bad. Let me.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a player. Oh my God.
One of my favorite parts of that was like you see him kind of like bow up, and the guy hits him, and then he just goes.
He had a big old smile on his face. He's like, that was me.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you can't move me. I'm here.
And that's hard because the ref's part of the field. Like he has all the right to the space that he's in.
It kind of scares you though, man.
You gotta watch out for him.
If you have a D1 player like that's running into you, and the D1 player bounces off you, I can see why people are just when they reach out to the refs, they're like, yeah, let me say it from out here. I'm not gonna walk up to the ref because if he could do that to a D1 player, I can only imagine what he could do to me. Then I'm like, yeah, you know what? I admit, I'm not a D1 player.
It's true. Well, I was just like, it just to me it's crazy to see like the athleticism because we don't normally see that from a lot of college refs. We were talking, I think, last week about like how like in shape NFL refs are in comparison to NCAA, but this guy I'm like, it literally was just a brick wall. He just bounced right off of him, and I laughed so hard when I saw that.
Well, and it's a little like contrasting, because the refs can throw hits like that, but defensive linemen can't.
Oh yeah, well no, you can't do that. That's not their job.
So because. I mean, I'm segueing into my bad ref. Yeah. My bad ref.
Oh, I couldn't
but
tell.
I don't know if you had something else to say.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'd much rather you say it to go say it to his face, but we're gonna do it out here.
Oh no, Joe. I will. I'll give you my address too. It's in the comments.
I don't think you really want to do that. I'd reach out to him.
But no, there was a roughing call, and like, listen, Georgia is not my favorite team out there. I don't.
Are you sure?
I don't like. I don't like.
I mean, I always see you wear red, man. So
it's scarlet. It's scarlet.
Yeah.
But
it's
no,
true,
but
actually.
like, I do not like to give Georgia props. They're just not one of my favorite teams. They're not quite Notre Dame, but they're climbing up.
Yeah.
But there was a roughing call on one of the Georgia linemen against Kentucky where I mean, it was just bad. The Georgia lineman is already on his way to hit.
He's lunged.
He's lunged already. He's not really in the air. He's not like spearing or anything. But the Kentucky quarterback releases the ball, gets hit, doesn't fall down.
Nope.
He doesn't get taken down. He doesn't hit the ground. He just kind of like couple steps backwards and then is going on to the next play.
Yep.
But that is now a roughing the passer call.
That was an SEC ref being a little too sensitive.
A little too sensitive. And I mean that's one of the things, like we talked earlier this year about the point of roughing, the roughing calls and doing targeting and all that stuff is player safety. 100% get it.
Yeah.
But you're seeing it more and more in college and even in the pros, where grazing of the helmet or hitting the quarterback in what has always been just natural things. You're going to get hit.
Well, and what's weird is like, so there, that particular call, like again, he was already, he basically had already lost the ability to pull himself back. He had already lunged forward. Again, he wasn't like in the air, but he's a big dude. He's already like a foot away from the guy, from Leary, and by the time he lets go of the ball, and you're like, oh, and he just bumps into him basically because he clearly didn't hit him. It was just more pressure, and
I guess it makes me think, man, is the SEC just has more sensitive players that they need those penalty calls? Because like,
no, we
the
just
SEC
have
doesn't do that.
The SEC has notoriously bad refs, and the reason why I brought
sensitivity.
And the reason I brought this up is because there was a hit on Jaden Daniels in the LSU Missouri game this past weekend, where he gets into the end zone. He's a foot into the end zone, and another guy grabs him, smacks him, and knocks him down. And it's just like he's already like they've already called touchdown, everything like that.
Who you just said, Jaden Daniels. Refs, just like everyone is just used to seeing him getting hit. He's probably used to it by now.
But he had to sit out the next the next drive because of the fact that he kind of got jacked up because of that guy. Like that was a very late hit after the play had been called, the whistle had been blown, and so like that type of stuff. Like you want to, on one hand, you want to protect a quarterback from a measly call,
right?
Like a measly hit, versus like not even calling anything against Missouri for a delayed blatant like late hit. But then on top of that, in the Missouri LSU game, you're going to call people for clapping. Right. I get it's a legitimate call, but no one ever calls that.
So for those of you who don't know the rule, and because we looked this up, when a offense uses a clap as part of their cadence,
they're part of their snap count.
Part of their snap count. Mm-hmm. The defense is not allowed to clap before the ball has been snapped.
Again, so makes sense.
Legitimate
makes sense
call.
Rule. Yep.
But
yeah,
unsportsmanlike.
Yeah.
So it's not like any of the fans in the stands are doing it. But
no, I mean, I guess I can understand it though too. Like, what if a defensive player was just saying like "hut," "hike"? Like something along those lines.
Totally get it. It's
just
funny.
We get and that's the thing is we get it. It's a legitimate call. We understand that. It's the same thing as a defensive lineman saying hut, hike, whatever.
Yeah.
Because they're not allowed to do that either.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a call you just never see. And the thing is, it was not just called against Missouri or LSU. It was called against both of them multiple times throughout the game, which is just weird to me. And
I guess like. Would that be more on the ref though, or I feel like that would be more on the programs themselves?
Well,
technically after the first one, I think again,
I can see one slipping. I can definitely see that.
You have to adjust your play based on the way refs are. If the refs are calling a very touchy game, you have to adjust your play and go, hey guys, they're not letting us hit a split second late, so you got to play to the refs. However, when it's done that many times, like
it just doesn't make any sense. I've watched enough football to not see that ever be called, and I've seen plenty of claps on the defensive side. Speaking of,
usually
Georgia likes to do that.
Yeah.
well, but like on the defensive side, you have a lot of cornerbacks, but they like in Georgia loves to do stuff like that. They love to disrupt the offense that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I never see them get called for it. So it's very interesting for me, like watching these two teams who, it felt like the refs were just doing something funky, and SEC refs are just notoriously bad. So
and I mean, going back to the roughing and the hitting and all that kind of stuff, you just like any other rule, you need there to be some kind of here's what it looks like.
Yep.
But when you get to targeting and roughing, there's really no way to do here's what this looks like, because every single tackle, every single hit is so different. But we got to find a way. They have to find a way, not me, because I don't want to deal with it.
You sure?
No, not at all. to kind of call those plays, whether it be a review, like they review these things, or they have somebody going, no, that's not roughing.
You think they'd be open for the reviews, man? That would open just like all the games to have more commercials, they get more money. So it's like, do that.
So there's got to be something, because those kind of hits. Now in this scenario, obviously Kentucky got blown away. So it didn't do anything. But if those kind of things win or lose a game, or that kind of affects a game, that's when it's going to cause some issues. So
yeah.
But speaking of winning and losing a game, hey, that was a great segue. For those of you, if anybody's not seen the shorts I've been doing, I've been kind of on Miami a little bit, and they are we're going to merge a little bit here. Implosions and bad coaching are going to be the same thing.
Fair enough.
Because there is no reason why Miami should not have taken a knee. Now, Dennis and I have had some fun banter back and forth, but the thing is Miami fumbling this ball. Again, Cristobal came out, and the first thing that he did, so the bad coaching is Cristobal calling anything other than a kneel at that point of the game, which led to a fumble. But then for Cristobal to almost blame his players and say, well, we preach 2 hands on the ball, and, everything else that he said, it's just bad. It's just a bad look. Yeah. And then he came out yesterday and said, we're going to take credit for this. I'm going to take the
responsibility.
I'm going to take the responsibility, which too late in my opinion, but whatever. But then their offensive coordinator comes out and says, yeah, it's my fault, but there's lots of plays that if that had changed, if they hadn't done all this, then I wouldn't have been in the situation to make a bad play call. It blows my mind.
And if you're ever in any kind of relationship, friendship, or anything like that, and you start an apology off with, yes, I'm sorry, all right, take responsibility for it, but that automatically negates what you just apologized for.
That's why you changed. The counseling tip that I got. But is an and.
Oh, and well, that's fair.
I take full responsibility, and you should have done this. No, but and we've talked.
We talked, mind you. Maybe I am wrong. I can't 100% agree, but
I'm not wrong. So you definitely are.
So you're saying somebody can't win under 15 with around 15 seconds?
I'm not saying that.
I'm just saying. You did say that though. You said it's almost impossible. You said it's almost impossible.
It is almost impossible.
I could tell you a few drives already off the bat. A couple of them happened this week.
I can tell you 99% more that didn't happen.
There's less, there's not that many. There's not 100 games. So if I said it is 15,
I'm just saying.
Even then, the math is not wrong.
Percentages don't require that. So
I'm just saying he's not good at math. So how can I trust him?
I know you're not good at math either.
but if Michael's backing me up, I know I'm decent at math on this one.
Because Michael's always going to agree with you. Just be able to disagree with me.
No, and I hear you. I 100% hear you that had the game not ended.
Listen, I'm sorry, I have to butt in here. Is your argument that they were gonna be able to get the ball back with enough time to be able to do a bubble screen?
From the information that bubble screens can go a long ways. Like there's a reason why so many SEC teams run it. It succeeds for them.
There is a chance.
Yeah,
but no, and I hear you. I just, when it comes to the end of a game, and it comes to a game that I'm up, and my choices are, even if I have to punt the ball and get them further down with less time and trust my defense to not allow them in, let's call it 15 seconds, to get 60 yards, 80 yards, I'm going to trust my defense, and I'm going to punt that every single time. And I'm going to be a more conservative play caller at the end of that game to do everything I can to up the percentage that I'm going to win that game. And so, in my opinion, a kneel, even if you have to punt the ball with 20 seconds, 15
I really
seconds.
Did say, I can understand why I did it. Now, would I have done it myself? I'm like, maybe I probably wouldn't have. I did say those words.
So
Like,
so let's do this.
So don't say I didn't say those things. I did say that.
You 100% did.
Yeah.
So, and we'll fight after this. But
Bring it, man.
Barking lot brawl. That's going to be on
that's
our.
right. That we'll record that too.
Yeah, we'll post that on our other channel.
And I think let me even go a little bit further. The bad coaching was not just the play call. The bad coaching was also after the game.
Oh, 100%.
I
do not deny that whatsoever.
That his player was at fault.
Yeah.
Was taking a day to take the responsibility for it. That's the issue, the biggest issue that I have with Miami, and especially when it comes to coaching, is a bad coaching call is not just the call, it's how he handled the call afterwards.
So don't get me wrong, I 100% agree with that. I also kind of, not taking away the blame from the coach, but another argument that can be said about this too is the fact that, like, at one point, can a college quarterback, a D1 college quarterback at a program like Miami, can literally make his own decision, be like, hey, I'd rather get in trouble with the coach because at least this makes the most sense to me. You're telling me any good quarterback or any elite quarterback, not saying he's an elite quarterback by all means, I don't believe he is, but can't make that self-decision like, hey, I'll take it on the back burner. You tell me he shouldn't have any responsibility with that, though, too?
I would say you would know this more as a former coach. I'll give you that. But there are going to be very few quarterbacks, in my opinion, in college football that are going to have the authority and the trust from their coach, but two, also you got to remember these are kids. They're young, and they're most of them are, this is my coach. I do what he says. Most of these coaches
that's a horrible mindset where I'm just being told what I'm said. And if you're being a quarterback, especially he's a junior.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's a redshirt junior. I don't know anything about that, but I know he's a junior. Mind you, I do believe that you got to make some decisions for yourself. Again, he's a D1 quarterback at a big name school. He's not a small name school or anything like that. Everybody knows when you say Miami, not Miami, Ohio, Miami. Right. Everyone knows who you're referring to. So
the actual Miami.
Yeah, I actually believe that, like, even if you don't have the full coaches trust and belief, you should be able to kind of risk the fact that, hey, you're gonna have to take some chances where it's probably not going to be the best ones. Are you going to get chewed out at the game? More times than not, yes. Are you going to get chewed out no matter what? Yes. Still, want to agree with you on this. Even if that's the case, 100% still blame the coach in terms of trying to pass on the blame to either other coaches, his players. As a leader, as a head coach, you are the leader of the team. Mm-hmm. You should not be trying to push blame somewhere else. Now, as a quarterback, you are the leader of the players. And we've talked about this with, like, Joe Milton with TT, his taking responsibility. And I feel like in this case, Joe Milton probably, I'm not saying that if he was in some situation, probably would have been like, you know what, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see that scenario happening, but I feel like as an individual player, you should probably sometimes just take the L's.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But he never would have had to make a different call if the coach had not called the play.
That's the thing.
He called. So
I mean,
either way,
kind of do a juxtaposition, like a little bit, because we talked about a little bit of this, and it's not on our program, but just kind of just the juxtaposition of, like, a coach that handled their win the way that we would hope that they would handle their really dirty win, which was, Colorado. They barely win against a team they really should have been blowing out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Coach Prime literally comes out and is just like, you know what? We played like hot garbage.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's just like, we're going to call it like it is. But then you have on the other side of this, you have his son acting, like
nothing like Coach Prime as a player or as a coach.
And here's the thing is, like, this is where, like, this is the weird dichotomy or the double-edged sword, like what you're talking about. Shedeur Sanders is someone who has that confidence to be able to make that call to change the play that he's been given, because he has confidence in his playmaking ability.
Right.
He has confidence in his ability to read the defenses. Again, I'm not, we can't say what was going through the head of Miami's quarterback at the time of that play. He might have just been like, I'm on autopilot because we're trying to win the game.
I mean, not only that, he, like, looking at his numbers, he threw 3 picks in that game, so I can see where his confidence is probably
really
way
low
before the game was even ended.
But
so yeah.
But the difference is that between these two, and again, this is kind of a weird thing, like line to draw, but like in comparison to draw, but it just shows it shows what a good coach does, which, again, Coach Prime, we haven't really been questioning his ability to be a coach like all season. We've been questioning whether or not we should be hyping him as much as we've been, as much as the media has been hyping him.
He is, if nothing else, he is a good leader of men.
Yes, and
he's
so
he's a good coach too. But
yeah, he's a good coach, and the fact that he is taking ownership of how poorly they played, and also going, hey, team, we're all a team, we're all a part of this team. We all played terribly.
Right.
We should have played better as a team.
Right.
So let's work better at being a team. It's not a solo player. It's not a And the thing is, like, it doesn't matter what the coach, what Cristobal wants to do a day or two after the fact.
True.
And how he wants to take back on that his initial
the ownership of
his initial reaction was to push the ownership off push the blame over to somebody else, and that's the problem. That shows poor leadership. Means that Cristobal might be a great recruiter, but it might mean at the end of the day he's just really not a good coach.
No.
True.
And now he could have a complete 180 change from his mindset since then, and realize that he really did make the wrong thing. And and if we start seeing like like we could see later this upcoming week, is Miami, like, have they rebounded as a team?
True.
And are they going to provide some kind of upset to North Carolina?
It's a big game
I would
coming
be
up.
very surprised, to be honest.
Oh, I would too.
I would be too. I mean, I feel like that those are the things you don't come back from when you say that kind of stuff.
Once
to
you
your
break the trust between the players and coaches.
But the other side of that is we're not in that locker room.
Yeah.
We don't know what he said. We don't even know when he said it.
But even
true.
Like, you're telling me, though, like, what's been said behind closed doors, your players, don't get me wrong. If something was told to us, like, where no one's watching, no one's listening, I would trust you. But if you're telling me, like, hey, you're being out telling everybody, like, where everyone can hear you, everyone can see you, I'm like, which one's really you?
Yeah.
True.
So, like, it's the confidence in the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to also mention, so kind of breaking this up, as a implosion 1B, so Miami's 1A, because I don't like going to these type, but Central Arkansas and Southeast Missouri State.
Okay.
Who?
Exactly, which is why we're not going to talk about it a lot. But here's the thing. So UCA trailed. So Central Arkansas. I won't say they're just their letters. Central Arkansas trailed 30-6 heading into the fourth quarter. They missed 3 2-point conversions, had to score 5 touchdowns in the final 4:15 to win, and then they picked off a Hail Mary pass in the end zone to seal the victory.
Oh wow.
So Central Arkansas, in terms of numbers,
You want to hear some? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
was a bigger implosion.
That's true.
But Miami was a
Mind you, it's such a small school. I tried to look up the game because I genuinely did not watch it. And when I looked up Central Arkansas, Bill Clinton showed up. So not even the school itself. So that goes to show where I'm like, I actually have to be even more in detail.
Which is, again, while this is just a little sub-point of what we're talking about here. But I just had to mention that because that was, 5 touchdowns in the last 14 minutes to go. Like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So don't be surprised if you don't see any game highlights from that, because it's possible we can't find them. But speaking of teams that lost and teams that won, and it's the time of the segment where I just continuously edge closer to diabetes.
Well, 33% will get you into the Hall of Fame in baseball.
You know what? That's true. So let's switch over to baseball. Let's start talking baseball. None of us know anything about baseball. But you know what? I'm going to start off with my win. I picked Louisville to beat Notre Dame, and not only did they beat them handily, they really just owned that game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we finally agreed on something, Michael. Just trust my words.
Listen, we get it. Like, if Louisville goes 12-0 this season, we'll be highlighting that reel.
I feel like
back
even if they
there.
win the ACC, like,
well,
it's still kind of a hard pitch. So 12-0, they still got a very top.
They do.
Schedule
but
ahead.
the way that they're looking,
like, it's just I wouldn't surprise me though at the same time.
It started off like a far-fetched, like, oh yeah, they're a good.
Yeah,
team.
I know the way you guys were looking at me, like, really.
All of a sudden,
really,
I was definitely give you side eye.
Yeah.
But now you're looking at it going, okay, so who else do they have to beat?
It's brown ball, boy. It's brown ball.
But like, you look at the teams that they're gonna have to beat, and it's just looking more and more like, yeah, Louisville could win Could win the conference.
Oh yeah, so. And I mean Louisville, they're looking good. They're in sync, which is what you want to know, like what you want to see, especially mid-season like this, And it's just one of those things. Like the fact is too, there's still a threat that teams are willing to look past because they just don't know. Like teams and fans are looking past because they're just like their team doesn't put up the stats that you would see from like a USC. They're just like, oh well, they're doing pretty good. They're winning all their games, but like
I mean, mind you, this is like I think the coach's first year here and or quarterback's first year. So like, you really didn't expect this kind of change.
No,
so.
Right?
Yeah, and so like that. I'm glad for two reasons aside from the fact that I'm glad that my upset was true for this one, because my other two were not. But I'm also glad because Notre Dame got to eat some more dirt, which is always a good day.
It is. I mean, Hartman ate everything, man. He lost it all.
he had a rough game, and you could tell he was just rattled. But then the other two.
You can go through them quick if you want to.
Yeah, I might have to go through at least one of them pretty quick. But Bama and A&M, we covered that one a little bit already. And again, it's just Bama hit their stride. A&M kind of had a lot of self-inflicted wounds. And just from an execution perspective, Bama had a ton on the discipline side, which they did last year too. So don't be surprised if Bama does lose more games this year. Like people need to stop assuming that they're just back and they're going to be okay. Yeah. Like they still have a lot of shakiness. They really only had two playmakers that entire game, so just be aware of that.
Nobody really stands out in Bama. Usually you have like a couple players, a few players.
You had Burton and stuff like that. Yeah. He looked really good, but again, all it takes is a decent secondary to be able to take them down. Like that's all it takes, or just get the right coverage. But then my other pick, again, I said this and I'll preface this as I said last week. I had UK beating UGA. For those that don't know, that's Kentucky beating Georgia, and I said, listen, it's the last on my list because it is the one that I'm least confident in. There was a lot of factors for that. One of the biggest one was the fact that you had Kentucky going to Georgia.
Right.
I feel like the game probably would have looked a little different with them if Kentucky was playing at home. But I still don't think that the game would have been different in the sense of who actually won.
Right. End result would be the same, but the
Yep. So, yeah, essentially, like what you saw this past week was literally Georgia for the first time all season playing all four quarters, which leads me into my soapbox moment because I've got a soapbox to stand on right now. So I'm going to get adjusted on my soapbox real quick. Huh? Yep. Yeah, you Georgia fans need to take a chill pill. One of the things that, I'm just going to get a little sassy with y'all. Everything that I've seen from Georgia fans over the past week, like since this win, has been, this is the first game that you saw Georgia not play down to competition. Georgia fans are one of the only Power 5 fans groups that actually talk about playing down to competition. Mind you, every big team, every powerful team does this playing down to competition thing from a standpoint of they have this mentality of, oh, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to wipe the floor with them. And then they realize in the second half, oh, we weren't doing that. We have to make adjustments. If that's what you're referring to as playing down to competition, then you're correct. That is what Georgia's done all year because that's what they've done all year. But what you really are trying to say is that Georgia just doesn't want to put their best foot forward with those teams all year. And this year, this game against Kentucky, they decided to do so. That's not what happened. What happened was Georgia finally realized they have to play all four quarters and not just two. So how about instead of just assuming that Georgia is playing down to competition and your team is just playing down to competition to make yourself feel better about the fact that you guys had two quarters that looked terrible, instead own it and go, you know what? We didn't look good for the first two quarters of that game. We need to be better. We need to start from the first snap to the last snap. We need to be a more consistent team. Georgia has not been that consistent team all year. This is the first game they were that way. This is the first time they actually looked like an elite team. They were the first time they looked like they deserved to be number one. And so I'll concede that point. that they deserve to be number one right now based upon that win that they did against Kentucky.
Or just because of Brock.
But
Brock Bowers, that's it.
I agree. If you remove Brock Bowers out of the situation, they would have lost multiple games this year. Period. Like, you cannot sit there and tell me that you would have won against Auburn without Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is the only person that actually kept you from losing that game. And so I don't appreciate it when the rest of like Ohio State fans or Bama fans or even Tennessee fans, when Tennessee is doing well, are expected to go, oh, well, you didn't play really well that game. But then Georgia fans, for some reason, get this weird pass, even though you've only won 2 national championships in the past 40 years. I'm sorry, 30 years. And
he's a little passionate.
I'm a little passionate about this because I have too many Georgia fans that I know that like to play this we play down to competition nonsense. So that's my soapbox, and I had to sit on it because it was just driving me nuts, grinds my gears.
I am Lucas Williams, and I approve this message.
I mean, it's just the same thing as I was saying before we started, like, as if I was, as a Tennessee fan, to go, oh, well, Tennessee was playing down to competition to S&P. No, that's 100% not what happened.
And like you said, we said this when we started, or before we started.
Yeah.
Yes, they did not play well to begin. They made adjustments, and then their depth of talent, their adjustments allowed them to come out in the second half. That's what happened to Ohio State at the beginning of the year against Indiana.
Yep.
Right there,
100%.
They came out.
No.
You
were playing down to competition.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a Georgia fan, so that's why. but it's you got to take that. That's part of the beauty of college football is that on any given day, an unranked nobody can beat. I mean, Colorado can come out after winning nothing and beat TCU, who everybody thinks is going to be one of the top 10 teams. It's a beautiful thing. Just enjoy it. Like, you don't have to defend your team in this way. Everybody comes out to play. I don't care if you're the best team in the country or you're the worst team in the country. You come out.
It's college football, man. You only need one Saturday. That's it.
That's right. So just take it, Georgia fans. Like, your team won. That's great. But guess what? They did not play down to competition. I do not believe that anybody ever plays down to competition.
You feel passionate about this too.
Yeah,
like both of y'all going on a segment on this.
Well, nobody plays down to competition. You go out, you play. Maybe you get beat for a half, and then you adjust and you come out and you do what you need to do.
Well, we're passionate about it because just something like you said too before the program, Dennis. You said too, if a team has a mentality of playing down to competition, as a coach, you're trying to get that out of your team's mindset.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, it's not something that you want just because I feel like every great coach you see out there is going to be like, hey, like, it's the same way if you practice half speed, when you play full speed, for one, you're going to expect to get hurt because your body's not used to playing that way. And two, you're going to be like, oh, this is all new to me. My quarterback is now throwing 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
Right. I can't catch the ball now. So it's like you're just not used to how the speed of the game or the speed of the play is supposed to go.
My hands hurt after catching the ball.
If they're bleeding, I don't understand.
But
speaking of UGA, I feel like we have to go right into the upsets and just, I'm going to pick Vanderbilt. I'm just kidding. Vanderbilt's clearly going to be.
They will be upset.
Right.
I honestly will be upset because they're going to lose again.
Yeah, I feel like the crowd noise is going to be usurped by the construction noise at Vanderbilt Stadium.
The scoreboard's going to be louder.
The scoreboard's going to be louder. For those that don't know, Vanderbilt Stadium is currently under construction and looks. It honestly is.
Looks like it's under construction.
It looks bad. I don't even know why they're allowed to host games there right now. They should just be using the Titan Stadium.
Where it's like
they hand out complimentary hard hats to all the fans.
It's an SEC school that literally in the middle of the season they're under construction. It's like, really? Like the scoreboard is not even up. We have to hang it. We have to use a crane or something. Like, okay.
Yeah, every other SEC school comes over here and goes.
We're giving them how much money?
Can we send them to the Pac-12?
Anyway, so the first upset that I've got this week is actually going to be Mizzou over Kentucky. Mizzou is going to Kentucky, and I think Mizzou has a more balanced team across like both sides of the ball. Their offense is not one dimensional like Kentucky's is. Missouri does have a better front on the defensive side, so they're better at shutting down the run. I think that Missouri is going to be more on fire after their loss than Kentucky will be. I think Kentucky is going to be licking some wounds because they got destroyed versus Missouri, who lost in a frustrating way against LSU. at home. And so I feel like Missouri is going to come out there and come out swinging. They have better offensive talent from a depth perspective. They've got better defense just across the board. And so I just feel like they're going to be a top contender there.
So this is when Kentucky starts their mid-season losing streak.
Yeah, the mid-season slump.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, you basically have the basketball season's almost like basically on.
They're distracted now.
So they're distracted now.
I mean, we even said earlier, like, Mizzou should have still been ranked. Kentucky should have been out of the top 25. Like, there's no reason. They got just dismantled.
And so the other upset that I've got two more. But the next upset that I've got for this week is USC over Notre Dame. I'm saying that like a question mark because of the fact that you would think that number 10 would definitely beat out what is Notre Dame ranked? 22? 20?
I think so.
Or something like that right now. They're like
21.
21.
Yeah.
So you would think number 10 would definitely be set to win and favored against Notre Dame, but Notre Dame is expected to win this at home by a minimum, like around this point spread's like 3 points or whatever.
Yeah. Did they like? Is Caleb Williams like out? Like, is he
indefinitely?
Is he going on vacation or something? Like, what?
Yeah, I haven't heard such rumors, but it's very possible.
I mean, their defense is so.
Their defense has been on vacation all year.
Right. They've been on strike or something.
But the reason why I say that, like, this is the hottest offense that Notre Dame is going to be dealing with so far this year. And they struggled against Louisville's offense, which again is very solid and is in sync, but they don't have as many crazy playmakers as USC does. Mm-hmm. And so I think from that standpoint, it's going to be more of a shootout because again, USC has no defense, regardless of what they thought when they got Barry Alexander. They're like, we're going to be awesome now.
They only show up like certain plays and then they're gone for a couple drives.
Exactly. And so I see USC coming in and providing an upset. And I honestly I wouldn't be surprised if, while it might be a shootout initially, I wouldn't be surprised USC pull it away. And
especially if Hartman plays the way he did against Louisville.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if he starts fumbling and throwing interceptions and stuff like that, then it's over for them. Anytime they give the ball to USC's offense, Caleb Williams is probably going to get a touchdown.
Right.
My last upset, and it's a weird one because it's like
weirder than the higher ranked team winning.
Well, it's a weird one.
How strange is this, Michael?
It's because people. It's weird because I'll just put it this: it's Oregon over Washington. And the reason why I'm picking this as an upset, for one,
I'm so confused.
And I'll get to why it's weird. I'll get to why it's weird here in a second. So it's weird. I'm picking this one because you're dealing with two of the top two teams in the Pac-12, and they're duking it out. I think.
Wait, I thought it was Duke. I thought it was Oregon, Washington.
It's Oregon, Washington. They're duking it out. And it's a verb, not a noun. Hate to explain the grammar to you.
I wasn't schooled well.
Okay. But essentially, what's weird about this is that if you look at ESPN, they have a probability meter that Oregon's going to win 65%. But the betting line shows Washington ahead. And that's why I'm saying it's weird. Currently the odds makers just don't know. And so they're kind of all at a loss. They don't know who's going to win the game, all that stuff. So I'm just calling it. I think Oregon's going to win. I think Oregon's got a better defense. Mm-hmm. They've been more consistent in that regard. Washington has struggled at times against mediocre offenses this season. They have a phenomenal offense. Washington has a phenomenal offense. I think Penix is going to have a great game.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's so much that Dan Lanning has done on the defensive side of the ball. Like the offense is looked great all season, but what people again forget when they're looking at Oregon stats, they're looking at the score that Oregon put up on the board and not the score that the other team didn't put up on the board. So that just shows the defense that Oregon has played all year. And again, it goes back to that Colorado game. They held Colorado to 6 points. USC couldn't even do that.
True.
And USC was supposed to have an elite defense going into this season, at least according to them. That turned out not to be the case. But that's one of the reasons why, I really do think that this is a matchup that's going to determine kind of the true front runners for the Pac-12.
I honestly think that the person that's going to decide that game is going to be Irving, the running back for Oregon.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep. What's his name? Bucky?
Yeah, Bucky Irving.
Yeah, and I mean that again, perfect segue because Oregon-Washington is my game of the week.
Oh, look at that!
Hey, it's almost like you knew that.
It's almost like I did.
But no, like you said, whoever wins this game really is in the driver's seat in the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's kind of like they control their own destiny. They just got to win out. You got two Heisman candidate quarterbacks who are going to be going at it. Obviously I picked Penix as my Heisman kind of front runner.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see how that goes.
The Heisman will stay in the Pac-12.
It will. I mean,
more than likely.
It really is looking that way. I mean, unless you have somebody. Well, no. I was going to say like Oklahoma's quarterback. If he starts
maybe.
Playing, he's got some
don't get me wrong, he's good, but I don't.
Yeah,
just the way that
his hype is not there, but his stats are. His stats are, but his hype's not.
Essentially, all of the Pac-12 quarterbacks would have to get injured.
Right, but I just think it's going to be a fun game. I mean, you can't go wrong. Again, a high-ranked game, a 7 and an 8 going against each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a good game. So that's my pick for game of the week. I'll let you guys do yours.
Do you have a preference of who?
Do I have a preference? I mean, last time.
Who are you going to predict?
If I was predicting, I would say Oregon.
Oregon? See, you guys are both picking Oregon, huh?
I am.
Like, don't get me wrong, I feel like Bucky Irving's going to be the deciding factor, but I feel like Washington will win.
That's fair.
Wouldn't surprise me either way.
No, I'm not going to be surprised, but I just think, like Michael said, I think their defense is better. I think that you're going to see them go back and forth, but I think Oregon's defense is going to make more stops on Washington than Washington's defense is going to make on Oregon.
It's definitely going to be an exciting game, though.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be a good one to watch for sure. The game of the week, and you can slap a homer label if you want to on me, but the reason why I picked this one this week is strictly because of the fact that you've got one team that is still fighting for their potential spot in the SEC championship, and that's Tennessee versus Texas A&M. Tennessee's hosting Texas A&M at home, and this is a point spread that is the same as your Oregon and Washington game, -2 or -2.5.
So all those half points you score.
They really matter. And you can totally get those. It's like if you barely cross the line.
Right, just the tip.
Yeah. But essentially, this is really going to come down to, like, is Texas A&M just angry? Mm-hmm. Are they going to be coming in angry? Granted, they're going to be playing at one of the toughest places in the SEC, if not in the conference, just are in NCAA to play football. And if Tennessee is well rested in there, they come in prepared and ready to go. They're about to face an onslaught. They have to play Texas A&M this week. They have to play Bama next week.
Right.
So, and they're going on the road for that game. So it's one of those things of how do these teams shape up? This is the first major challenge Tennessee's had all season. Yep. And if Tennessee is able to win this and win it comfortably, then they could have the confidence to go into Bama and maybe potentially even upset Bama next week. But that's it for next week. If you guys want to tune in for the
not
if
upset. You want to join us next week.
Yeah, join us next week for that particular potential upset. I'm not saying I'm calling that one, but who knows? But anyways, again, it's you might call me a homer, but it's really just at the end of the day, it's really just the fact that I see this as one of those defining games for a team.
Every Tennessee is a defining game right now.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is like this is like I think that. The Oregon-Washington game is a defining game in the Pac-12. I think Tennessee,
not even Pac-12. That's two teams in the top 10 that either one could be in the college football, even both.
True.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and the Tennessee Texas A&M is definitely a SEC. Like it shakes up the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, I mean to kind of bring it back to Pac-12 though. My game of the week is gonna be like you mentioned earlier, USC and Notre Dame.
There you go.
Go USC. I don't like doing that. I don't want to cheer for them either, but.
It's fine, man. Like red does look on you, man. Crimson red, right there.
West Coast Notre Dame.
Like, what do you call it? Nah, man, you're way out of there. Like USC's actually, like I said, is seen as the underdog. They're actually, because of ESPN, they're actually rated to. Notre Dame's actually the favorite by almost 62%, and they're, like I said, about 3-score.
Yeah,
like
which just
underdog.
doesn't make any sense.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
I really would have thought it would have been much closer. If anything, I get it. USC has no defense whatsoever. Notre Dame is playing at home. They got a loss. They probably don't want to have back-to-back losses, but it doesn't surprise me if Notre Dame finishes off with 3 losses this year.
Yep.
And like It really just comes.
Well,
down
Notre
to,
Dame's got a couple other games later this year that I think they're going to lose.
I mean, it's very possible.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me.
They already did.
Oh, they already did. That's right.
Well, that was this past
playing
week.
was kind of generous. Playing is a little generous with that.
That's what I was going for. Playing is generous. That's what
like, but no, I mean, I feel like USC, if they win this, it's going to come down to their defense making like one or two key stops.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If they do that, Hartman is going to be shaky. He didn't do many turnovers throughout the season before Louisville, but if the pattern shows, if he throws 1 or 2 picks, or 1 or 2 fumbles, maybe 3 picks, hey, it's USC's game.
Yep, exactly. Well, I mean, again, we got a very exciting slew of games this weekend, and so thanks for joining us tonight for this tailgate. Come back next week, bring a drink, and join the conversation.